Westfield Memorial Hospital provides high-quality health care to residents of Western New York, offering patients the most sophisticated medical advancements while keeping the ease and familiarity of a community hospital. Support for Chautauqua Sunrise has been provided by WRFA 107.9 FM, Jamestown's public radio station, streaming online 24/7 at WRFALP.com. Low power to the people. Meter's Restaurant, a family tradition for over 50 years in downtown Ripley, is a proud supporter of Chautauqua Sunrise. Meter's provides all-day dining, banquet services, and custom catering, specializing in pie. Funding for Chautauqua Sunrise is provided in part by the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency, with offices in Jamestown and Dunkirk, helping businesses to prosper throughout Chautauqua County. From supporting people with disabilities to enjoy great lives, to providing health care services that are available to anyone, the Resource Center has been improving our county for more than 60 years. Learn more about how the Resource Center makes a positive difference in people's lives.
Is getting vaccinated on your to-do list? We can help you check it off, because we make getting vaccinated easy. You've got this, because we've got you. To learn more, visit yougotthis.usaging.org.
From the Access Chautauqua Studios in Mayville, it's Chautauqua Sunrise. Chautauqua Sunrise is hosted by Doc Hamels and supported by the award-winning volunteers at Access Chautauqua. We are here to share local news, colorful interviews, and events of interest to everyone. Chautauqua Sunrise is broadcast live Saturday mornings each week from 9 to 10 a.m. Send events via email or call us live. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. And now, from the Access Chautauqua Studios, it's Chautauqua Sunrise.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Doc Hamels, and welcome to Chautauqua Sunrise. Hope you're all doing well. Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Shout out to our friends over in the Ukraine. We got an awesome show for you today. We got all kinds of guests that are going to be visiting with us, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Natalia, I hope you're doing well, and all your friends over there. Be safe in the Ukraine. Well, it's been a 4-season week. We had frost, and we've had spring. I guess we're going to have summer this weekend. Crazy weather, but I hope you're all doing well. And if you're just joining us for the season, welcome back to Chautauqua County. I know lots of folks come in at this time of year and get their cottages and their summer homes ready, so welcome back. I want to say good afternoon to all my listeners on WRFA 107.9, low power to the people in Jamestown, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. Always remember that this is a live show right now, and if you want to give us a call, you can give us a call at 716-753-5225, and we'll try to get you on the air. We also have invited a special group of folks that are friends of ours from a sister show that we do here at the studio that we promote, Oak Island Plus. It's a program that we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but they may be calling as well. So please don't hesitate to give us a call if you want to have a comment or a question for myself, my guest, and so on. We have a few announcements that I want to get to right away because I've got folks that are just raring to tell you about a wonderful fundraiser coming up soon here in Mayville. But before we do that, let me share some things. Okay, Jeff, get ready. I'm going to talk fast. You got to listen quicker. Slide 15, here we go. Ancestral Voices, a family story written by A.W.R. Gurney. It's going to be set in Buffalo, New York in the 1940s. Ancestral Voices is a bittersweet, often very funny story perceived through the eyes of a young Eddie whose family is turned upside down when his grandmother unexpectedly divorces his grandfather to marry his grandfather's best friend. Woo! Out the diagram that sentence. Simultaneously, the outside world is undergoing historical changes akin to Gurney's love letters which, by the way, I'm very happy to say I starred in a couple years ago. Ancestral Voices is performed informally by actors reading from scripts. All right, and my very good pal Joan Caruso is in this. The show is going to be May 17th at 7 p.m., May 18th at 7 p.m., May 19th at 2 p.m., $20 per tickets, and this is going to be right over at Lakeshore Center for the Arts, one of my favorite places in the world. Okay, right now they are preparing the big gym over here at the former Mayville School, and they are going to be conducting their spring market, the Mayville Spring Market. This annual event, they tell me. The proceeds are going to go to Inspire Good of Western New York. So if you're around and you want to check out the craft fair here, it runs from 10 to 4 today and 10 to 2 tomorrow. And you go right through the family court building entrance right here in Mayville at the former Mayville School off the parking lot. All right, let's go to Dunkirk. The city of Dunkirk is excited to welcome all of you to the upcoming season within its waterfront community with several family-friendly events scheduled for the entire year. Now, we're just going to give you some of them today because it goes on all summer long. The mayor of Dunkirk, Mayor Kate, the city council and staff offers a special thanks and recognition to the 2024 returning platinum level sponsor DFT Communications. National Grid is the overall stage sponsor, while Advanced Production and Group is the production stage provider. The annual Memorial Day Parade, Monday, May 27th at 11 a.m. On Central Avenue. And then after 10 a.m., there's a memorial service held by Dunkirk Joint Veterans Council at Memorial Park. Oh, quick, a little advertisement of my own. We are going to be doing the Mayville Parade. I just got word the other day, so I hope to be once again moderating that particular event. Now, back to Dunkirk. Their parade is sponsored by DFT Communications and a whole bunch of other folks, including Northern Chautauqua Conservation Club, the Central Station Restaurant, Dunkirk Lakeside Club, and the Don Polsky Club. All right, then there's the Dunkirk Flea Market, organized by Brian Meyer, will be held Sundays. Not Sundays, held Saturdays, starting May 4th through the end of August, and that's from 8 to 2. The City of Dunkirk and Primitive Patriot Outdoors are proud to announce the first annual Dunkirk Walleye Festival, which is going to take place May 31 and June 2nd, so mark your calendar. That's going to be on the city pier. So again, the big walleye tournament, that's a big deal every year. Hey, if you got any questions, give them a call at 366-9886, and we'll be telling you more events as they come available throughout the summertime. All right, now we're going to go down to Jamestown. All right, ready? Slide 17, Jeff. Let's see, what do we got here? Doors open at 6 p.m., it says. What's it for? Over the course of 10 days and 435 miles, an unbreakable bond is forged between pro adventurer racer Michael Light, played by Mark Wahlberg, and a scrappy street dog companion dubbed Arthur. Sounds like my dog. Based on an incredible true story, Arthur, the king, follows Light, desperate for one last chance to win as he convinces a sponsor to back him and a team of athletes, and there's a whole slew of them, for the Adventure Racing World Championship in the Dominican Republic. As the team is pushed to their outer limits of endurances in the race, Arthur redefines what victory, loyalty, and friendship truly means. All right, it's PG-13 and it's 108 minutes long. And then also, so that's going to be shown, May 1, coming up this week from 7 p.m. And then there's an 8:48 showing, $7. Then on Saturday, May 4, that's a week from today, Poe, the Dragon Warrior, Golden Globe nominee Jack Black, I love that guy, is tapped to become the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace, and he needs to quickly find and train a new dragon warrior before he can assume his new lofty position. A recent sighting of a wicked, powerful sorceress, Chameleon, a tiny lizard who can shape-shift into any creature, large or small, forces Poe to form an alliance with the crafty, quick-witted thief Zen. A very sly fox who really gets under Poe's fur, but whose skills will prove invaluable. In their quest to protect the Valley of Peace from Chameleon's reptilian claws, this comedic odd couple duo will have to work together. In the process, Poe will discover that heroes can be found in the most unexpected places. It's rated PG, it's 94 minutes long, and it's going to be May 4th, 2 p.m. and 3:34 p.m. And finally, the Chautauqua County Department of Health is announcing 2 free rabies vaccination clinics sponsored by the Town of Poland and the County Health Department. Animals must be pre-registered to receive vaccinations. Vaccinations will be provided free of charge to all dogs, cats, and domesticated ferrets. How do you know if a ferret has been domesticated? 3 months of age and older. When's this going to take place? Saturday, April 27th. Wait a minute. What's today? Today's today. Well, that's today, Saturday, from 1 to 3 p.m. So watch the show, hang around for a little while, and then also, let's see, what else? Oh, and then you got Saturday. Oh, all right, hang on. I'm getting confused. Today is at the Town of Poland Highway Department on Grub Hill Road in Kennedy. And then, I have voices in my ear. That's why I get confused. And then Saturday, May 4th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Town of Poland Fire Department in Town of Portland, 80 Lake Avenue in Brockton, New York. All right, so let's see. Got a question? Give them a call at 716-665-2209. So that's free. Rabies Clinic, 2 different dates, April 27th today, over in Kennedy. Okay, and then next week in the Town of Portland, in Brockton, 9 to 12 p.m. Okay, 665-2209. And I think I already told you about the spring market that's got done. And then, of course, the last thing to talk about for my announcements is you got Chautauqua's Got Talent. If you're interested in going over there and watching what's going on, it's sort of like one of those competitive talent shows. April 29th, 7 p.m. May 6th, 7 p.m. May 13th, 7 p.m. May 20th, 7 p.m. It's at the Spire Theater over in Jamestown on 3rd Street. Chautauqua County's annual People's Choice Talent Competition hosted by the Spire Theater. They've been doing this for a number of years now. Chautauqua's Got Talent takes place, all those dates I gave you. Tickets are available at purchase at the InspireJamestown.com. So InspireJamestown, all one word, .com. That's the end of my announcements. Woo! Now, I will get to 2 ladies that are dressed and ready to talk about a very special event. I want to welcome to the show the president of the Mayville Lions Club, Pat Cook, and the vice president, Linda Spauling. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, Doc.
So you have a special event coming up. Let's hear all about it.
Yes, we do, and thank you so much for fitting us in because it is next week.
Do you see how fast I talk so I could get more time for you?
Yes, I appreciated that. I really did. It was really nice of you to do that.
So, Kentucky Derby party. Okay, what's it all about?
Well, first I want to tell you a little bit about the Lions Club. We have about 15 members here, but globally there are over 1.4 million lions in the world.
Wow.
There are 200 countries and 48,000
chapters, club, yeah.
Worldwide.
Wow.
So it's really quite a thing, and there, our motto is we serve, and we always like to. We started out with doing sight, vision and all that, and went to hearing. So we have those 2 things. Then we have added in the past. We've added environmental situations, and recently was childhood diabetes.
Oh boy.
And cancer.
Oh, wow.
So
you're
we've
tackling
had
some big topics here.
Yes, and this service thing that we're doing on next Saturday is the brainstorm of our vice president here, Linda Spaulding. She came up with the idea because of the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
And she thought this would be a great way for us to raise some funds for the disabled veterans who are, some of them are blind, some of them have hearing problems.
Yeah.
They have so many different problems.
Diabetes.
But we would, diabetes.
Yeah.
We would really like to help them all. So we worked with Jim at the VFW here in Mayville, and that's what we're going to be doing next Saturday night. And I'm going to let Linda Spaulding tell you a little more about it, as she's the chairperson of the committee.
Okay, and we'll try to find her under that big old hat.
I was thinking, how are we going to do
The
that?
hats are everything.
It hides so many sins.
Okay, so you grab the mic,
Yeah,
Linda.
you can grab the mic.
All right.
This is yours now.
All right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
she
I don't know
yields
if I'm
the mic.
that ambidextrous.
There
Let's
you
see.
go. Okay.
I need that. Okay, thank you for having us on.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be on again.
I know, it's been a while.
I'm going to be talking about the party itself,
Let's hear it.
which is a week from today, May 4th at 5:30 p.m. at our Mayville VFW on 10 Memorial Drive. I think everybody knows where that is. It's going to be a fabulous celebration, and as Pat had mentioned, it is to be able to give some assistance to the disabled veterans. And so really they are doing all of the work. Jim Thomas, who is in charge of many things, is going to be doing the major cooking.
Okay, what are you having?
We are having, and it's only $12.
$12?
$12 per person for the buffet, $5 for a mint julep. What are we having? We are having Kentucky chicken tenders,
Okay.
ham and cheese sliders, which is something that they serve at derby parties,
I did not know this.
southern potato salad.
Southern. Okay. Is it spicy?
Well,
We'll find out.
I'm not cooking.
Has a little kick to it.
Probably is.
It's Southern.
Cornbread,
Yum.
shrimp cocktail.
This is going to be on the buffet?
Yes.
For $12?
Yes.
Shrimp is going to be on the...
I'm
Wow.
not finished.
Oh, I'll be quiet.
We're going to have a fabulous veggie tray, and I know some people are vegetarians. There are going to be plenty of vegetables. And the veggie tray will include celery, carrots, all kinds of different sweet peppers, as they do at derby parties, radishes, and a wonderful sweet sour cucumber dip.
Is there a book on what to serve at a Kentucky Derby
Well,
party?
you go right online. Just go right on Google.
I'm new to this. I don't know.
When you Google it, your mouth will water when you see those recipes.
my
You'll
gosh.
get so hungry.
I didn't realize mint juleps I've heard about forever, but I didn't know about the rest of the
I haven't had a mint julep, so
traditional.
Well, we are encouraging people.
Yeah.
We are encouraging people to be sure and wear the women to wear their hats.
Yeah.
We're not going to have a competition, but we are going to
Just dress up?
Just want you to dress up in a hat or anything that's special like that.
Okay. So again, where's this going to be in the times?
it's going to be at the Mayville VFW, right here in town,
Right down the
10
road.
Memorial Drive. Next week, May 4th, Derby Day at 5:30, and there'll be a buffet preceding post time. 50/50 tickets are also available.
Well, of course.
There are no tickets being sold. The procedure for any fundraiser at the VFW is you call the VFW in advance so they know how much food to prepare.
Okay.
And then you pay at the door. But walk-ins are welcome. And I want to emphasize the telephone number.
All right, here we go.
And you can Google it, 716,
Yes,
our
ma'am.
area code,
Got it.
753
Mayville Exchange.
2444.
All right, 716-753-2444. Pretty easy. Okay. Pat, last word, because we got to move along.
Well, we'll collect the money when you come. So hopefully a lot of people will call in because we need to know how much food we're going to need.
All right.
We are going to have walk-ins come. That'll be fine. But it would be nice to have a good idea of how many we are going to have. But I want to thank you again for
Absolutely.
getting us on so
That's what this is
so
all
quickly.
about here.
And
Okay.
yes.
Come next year again. We'll celebrate something else.
All right. Thanks,
Maybe it'll
Doc.
be Christmas in June or something.
Well,
All
we
right, folks,
also-
again, Kentucky Derby extravaganza at the Mayville VFW, May 4th.
Yes, May 4th.
All right, 5:30, and if they want to call it, 716-753-2444. All right.
Yes, thank
Pat
you
and
so
Linda.
much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, folks, so you got something to look forward to next week, and we're going to take a little break right now. Stay tuned. We got a great show in store for you. This is for you.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Okay, folks, today's a very special presentation of Chautauqua Sunrise in that we are kind of blending the two worlds. We are blending, of course, Chautauqua Sunrise with another special project that I've been working on for the past year with my good friend Jim McQuiston, and that's called Oak Island Plus. Jim, 1 year later, what the heck?
Who would have known?
Who would have known? So, Jim, I am flabbergasted of what has happened this past year. It was an experiment that we kind of thought about, and then we did something about it. So you want to give the history of what happened?
Well, back in 2016, I contacted the people on the Curse of Oak Island show. Actually, it was a question that I thought maybe they could help me answer, and then they started asking me a lot of questions. It just ballooned to where I'd been up there, I believe 4 times, and been in like 6 war rooms, a couple of war Zooms, I call them, where I'm at home and they call in. And I was presenting a lot more than they could handle, I think. I'm trying to be polite about it.
I've noticed that about you.
Well, the thing is that they have limited time, and they have a different agenda, whereas mine has always just been the history, because there's a ton of history out there. There's for a researcher today, you can access much more than a researcher even 20 or 30 years ago, because you can go online and get books, PDFs of books that were written in 1500, 1600, documents, letters to people. So I was writing books. I've written 10 Oak Island books, and one book, I don't mention Oak Island in it, but it's about the Knights Templar and Freemasonry. About 5 books ago, I'd been on your show a few times, and I started asking you what you thought about this, what you thought about that. Before you know it, we were exchanging 700, 800 emails. And
All hours of the day. Barb says,
yeah.
who's calling you at 2 in the morning? I said, it's Jim.
Well, the thing is, you trip over something, and you'll be looking for one thing, and you'll trip over something else, but you say, wow, that fits the story, and then you don't want to lose track of it. And, it's been a good partnership in that you look at things, we look at things fairly similar in the big picture, but when it gets to drilling down, you might drill down in a different area than I do, something I didn't think about or something you didn't think about and I do. And it's just been a great building of information beyond what we could ever imagine. So a little over a year ago, after you'd helped with, I think, the last 4 books, we started realizing that people really love watching things. They love seeing full color pictures and all that, and that maybe we should try our own video cast. I call it a video cast. Yeah, and you had access to the center over there in Westfield.
Innovation Studio.
Studio.
Westfield, Jackie Phillips.
And wonderful equipment, and Randy from here came over and helped us out. And I know I was pretty shy on that first show. It was more of an unfamiliarity with us. And
well, we had to learn to dance a little bit,
And you've done over 500 shows here, so it was second nature to you. But we built it, and every show has been getting better. And this last show was crazy because we started out with a hint that a friend of ours up in Nova Scotia gave us, that an inadvertent hint that he gave us about the M Wall, you may remember. And before you knew it, we had this whole new history of Nova Scotia that nobody ever writes about. People in the past had written about it, and there were records of it, which is where we always go for our information. But in the modern days, nobody had ever read about it. And so what happened was it ballooned to where we had to do a 2-part episode. And even with that 2-part episode, we were leaving things out. So there's tons and tons of history out there. All you got to do is be willing to go look for it. And a lot of people say, well, you're changing history. Well, we're not. We're just rediscovering it. Yeah. I call it hidden history. It's hidden in these books, hidden in people's letters. You can compare this to this to this and say, oh, they're all talking about the same thing. It all happened on that day, September 18th, 1632. The three sources 400 years ago wouldn't be lying about it. Right. They'd have no reason to lie about it. So it's just ballooned into a wonderful show, and we're getting a lot of, I don't know, you have the stats.
I do. But before I get the stats, I want to do a shout out to the folks that follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because I gave them the phone number yesterday if they want to call in. So don't be shy. Or if you are shy, call that number, 716-753-5225 that I provided. And Randy, who's our cameraman on the show, he's actually here in the studio as well. He'll take your message and bring it in. Okay, but we're happy to chat with you. And also all the folks that subscribe, almost 900 now, people subscribe to our YouTube channel called Oak Island Plus, right? And it's been pretty incredible. So the stats are this. So when you and I first started our very first video podcast, so it looked just like this. It's a show. It's a movie. How many people did you think would watch it the first time out?
We were actually, I think both of us had in our mind maybe a few hundred people. But we just wanted to, it's more for posterity, just like my books. I mean, you know, I might sell 500 or 600 or 700 of one book, and there's millions of fans of the show, but it gets put down for posterity, and they have copies of them all in their library or whatever. Well, that's what I think we're doing with the show. We're building a library of information. It's information you can count on because we're showing the sources. Like the one show we did with you playing the role of William Alexander, everything that you spoke was either something he wrote down or that a letter that was written to him or some kind of legal document. You were reading the actual words from the 1600s.
Right.
Who else is doing that? Nobody.
Nobody.
A lot of them, I won't name names, but a lot of them just say, I have a feeling that. Well,
perhaps
we have a book that, we have a document that, you know, and that's where all of our focus has been on proving what you're talking about.
Right. And so when we first started out, we were going to do a weekly show, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of work that goes into this. But what I wanted to share with is, you know, when you start a project like this, even Chautauqua Sunrise, who knows where it was going to go? And here we are 10 years later. But with Oak Island Plus, you were right. We were thinking maybe a few hundred people would watch the show. And now we have put up 13 videos. Number 12 is actually 2 parts, but each one you got to count separately. And as of this morning, Jim, 28,500 views approximately, if you round it up. Wow. I mean, it's like people are hungry for history, you know. And that's the total series. I just got the question. If you take every episode, all 12 episodes, and you count up all the views, it's 28,000 plus. And the thing is, and I don't know how you feel, you always get, on Facebook, on YouTube, you always get the controversial naysayer or whatever. But I would say 99.9% of the people that respond or leave messages for us are very positive.
Yep.
They say, thank you for the history. You know, and so I have a question for you. And obviously, we work together on this project, but I think it's well worth to talk about it in this way. When you watch The Curse of Oak Island, they go 1700s, 1600s, the Vikings, all over the place, which is fine. That's how they do their show. But what's our track? How would you describe the track that we stay in for the most part?
Well, it's generally around the beginning of the 1600s, and the purpose for that was because even when I first wrote my first book and I was first talking with them, that's where most of the evidence was. Most of the tangible artifacts that could be really dated clearly were falling into this early 1600s. And so I thought, well, what was happening in Nova Scotia in the 1600s? And we just opened up this can of worms like crazy of what was happening. Even this last show has not changed history, but exposed it. And so everything before that date,
The date being
the 1600s,
Okay.
pretty much everything before that date, a lot of it is conjecture. For instance, Jacques Cartier went to Canada, but they don't absolutely know that he went to Nova Scotia. They know he went to Quebec. And he was probably one of the better recorders of some type of
ship
history.
logs and personal artifacts.
And weather reports and things like that. But the early 1600s, particularly with the French getting to Nova Scotia about 1604, that's when the written history and the documentation and everything takes off. And there's enough evidence right there to show what might have happened on Oak Island. I mean, we've placed the Scots 20 miles up from Oak Island. We've placed the French in Mahone Bay, paddling right around Oak Island with the Mi'kmaq group. And we've placed one of the Knights of Malta living and dying and being buried 30 miles from Oak Island. Knights Baronet of Nova Scotia had land nearby. So there was a lot of talk about, well, this area was never investigated much. Oh my gosh, there was all kinds of people there doing all kinds of stuff. And that was all being ignored. And so whether that is ultimately the answer or not, that history should not be ignored. There's just too much of it. It's too significant to the development of the New World.
You know, when we first started out, we started out in a very thin layer. I would say 60, help me with this, I'd say the research we were doing like 1620, Sir William Alexander with King James, to 1632 when they kicked the Scots out of Nova Scotia. I mean, we were pretty much focused on that in the early beginning of our research. But then the next thing we know, we're talking about the Freemasons.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, after the Scots were literally chased out of Nova Scotia by the Knights of Malta, which is this big discovery that we've made, and there's evidence for it. 2 years later, the sons of William Alexander and his business partner became the world's first known Freemasons. And we think that it was, knighthoods were a really big deal, at least up to that time. But there was a lot of pushback from the public against royalty and against privileged people.
Yeah.
And what about us? What about us? And my feeling is that a lot of that that idea in particularly men's minds, that somehow we got to defend this world and defend our king and make it all better, kind of hid itself away in the Freemasons, because there you weren't going to be in contention directly with the king or with other knighthoods where you would get your head lopped off. And that, I believe, was where the original secrecy came from, was that we want to do stuff together. Now, I'm not a Mason and I'm not preaching Freemasonry, but we want to do things to help the cause, but we don't want to lose our lives over it. So let's just meet once a month or whatever, and make some plans and do some stuff. And, it's changed from then in different ways, in different lodges. I'm sure you're aware. One lodge can be different dramatically from another lodge. But in the beginning, it was, we call it the multi-generational conspiracy of elites, because a lot of these guys that were in these knighthoods, both in France and in England and Scotland, were the ones, their families were the ones that fed into Freemasonry. And one proof of that, which I just discovered this less than a year ago, out of the 287 years of Scottish Freemasonry, of the Grand Lodge, there's been 110 Grand Masters. 90 of them that's 80-some%, have been from these Knights Baronet of Nova Scotia families. So you can't say that Nova Scotia didn't have something to do with the beginnings
Right.
of Freemasonry and the movement there. And that's only the paternal surname. So if you would do a deep
Maternal,
dive in
yeah,
it,
yeah.
you might find that every single one was. And even in England, a lot of it slopped over there. So it's a big story that's all wrapped together. It's not, things didn't just start in a vacuum. This fed off this fed off this, fed off this. And there was a lot of cooperation between the Knights of Malta and the Knights Baronet. But then the final conflict was September of 1632, when the French said, no, Scots, you have to leave Nova Scotia, we're taking over. And now it went back and forth after that.
Okay, let me roll the tape back a little bit, like I always do. And just for those that are watching right now, we're talking about the history of Nova Scotia.
The colonization of it.
And Oak Island is part of that. It's an island in Mahone Bay, which is part of Nova Scotia. And this all kind of came about from you having an interest from your own ancestral background, and me just interviewing you and getting excited about the show on TV. So what we've discovered so far, I think, if I can just kind of summarize this, think of a multi-layered cake. Thousands of years ago, you had the First Nations Native Americans, the Mi'kmaq, all right, which are the Indian tribes of Nova Scotia and over into Quebec, and they were in all that area. And then you had explorers. They could have been Vikings. They were the French and British and so forth. They were sailing looking for what? The West Indies or East Indies or spice trade or whatever, because they were trying to expand their kingdoms in the king's purse. And then over time, you had this group of French that were actually trying to settle in Quebec and so forth. And then along comes Sir William Alexander, has an idea. We gotta do something. Our nation, we're using up all of our resources. We've got poverty and plague, and he wants a better world. I mean, that was sort of the time of enlightenment and looking forward to a better way of living for the common man. So he comes up with this idea to start a plantation or a new world in Nova Scotia, which is really Latin for New Scotland,
Yep.
which is something people forget. So for a stretch of time, he's putting together the Knights
Baronet of Nova Scotia.
and that's been your theory from day one on the show, Curse of Oak Island. And then the king, his son, King James's son, Charles, he throws him under the bus. He cuts a deal with France. He gives Nova Scotia back to the French, even though they were there first. Then the Scots were there. Then they get kicked out, but yet they get kind of absorbed into the background, right?
Yes.
As we discovered. So the French come back, and then after a period through the Knights of Malta, which is another group that replaced the Knights Baronet, and then the Knights of Malta get kicked out by the British. All right, so that's sort of the band that we're working in, right?
Yeah. And, you mentioned my genealogy. One of the reasons I even approached them is because my distant cousin, his name is Sir Ian MacDonald McQuiston, and McQuiston is what they call his Gaelic patronymic. That's the branch of McDonald's he came from. Well, so did I. That's where my McQuiston name came from, McQuiston. Well, he's the premier Knight Baronet of Nova Scotia. So as I was watching, I didn't start watching the show, Curse of Oak Island, until the third season, and what sparked my interest was the big equipment, the bulldozers and all that. And then, but while I'm watching it, I'm going, well, wait a minute. I got this, I don't know what it's about. I have no idea what it's about, but I've got this cousin that's the premier Knight Baronet of Nova Scotia, and they're in Nova Scotia. Maybe I should call them or email them. And so we had a call, about an hour-long call, and that's what really kicked us all off. And then and they were saying, well, tell us more about what this is. And I'm like, I don't know, but I will. I'll look into it and get you information. It's just been an information hunt ever since. But yeah, it was Alexander had made some comment about we're down to fishing and fighting to have any kind of living, any sustenance, because they killed off, except on the king's land, most of the deer had been killed off. You know, a lot of lumbers had been cut down. You know, if you go up to Scotland, you'll see how barren it is up there. So he wanted to, like other men of his time, he wanted to branch out to the New World. And once they got there and they saw just endless forests. I mean, even today, the Northeast is the most forested, pretty much the most forested part of America. But they just saw this endless forest where they were hunting for it there. And then they found out about trapping beaver. And the beaver business was incredible.
Incredible. Give them that statistic that you told me.
They on average, during the height of it, they were exporting back to Europe 15,000 beaver pelts a year.
Wow.
And 1 year they set a record of 22,000 beaver pelts. That's a lot of hunting and cleaning and taking it down the river in canoes and trading it on the ships, you know, and all that. And all that was taking place, a lot of it was taking place in Mahone Bay. And we know that for a fact because one of the early French explorers was in that bay around 1632, around my target date. And he wrote that they came down what's now called Gold River, but it had a different name back then, into Mahone Bay, which had a different name back then. But they came down from New Ross, which had a different name, a significant different name, because there's little lakes up there. And that's where the beaver were hanging out. So the Mi'kmaq would, I don't know if they necessarily had traps yet, but they would somehow capture the beaver, bring the pelts down the canoes into Mahone Bay. Well, what's right at the bottom of Gold River? Oak Island. Oak Island's right at the bottom of the river. If you were going to go to, I mean, it's a big enough island because there's 300 and some islands in that bay, but a lot of them are smaller ones. But it's a big enough bay where you could build a stone road, you could bring your canoe up on that stone road, you could bring the ox carts from the ships, as Carmen showed us, that the ox, water didn't bother them. They could walk right up.
You're referring to Carmen Leg.
Carmen Leg. They could walk right up to the top of their back. They could load up the carts, bring them right up the thing, and trade there. And one of the reasons it promotes the idea of the trade there is that when they discovered the road, they also discovered Mi'kmaq artifacts and European artifacts. They discovered a trade weight, which you wouldn't take that with you if you weren't going to be trading. And they've discovered a cloth bag seal, which would seal European cloth, which was one of the big trading items. And they discovered the beads, which was another big trading item. And they discovered the tassel, which was another trade item. So there's evidence of 3 trade items right on that island that would be normally traded to First Nations people for beaver pelt. William Alexander's son, William, had a 31-year monopoly on the beaver pelt trade. Of course, the French had a different idea. They had their own man that had the, so
competition.
Economics was driving a lot of it. The idea of being freer than you could be in the old world without worrying about the king lopping your head off, or, like you said, the plagues and religious strife and all that. It was a get out of Dodge free card if you were willing to take the chance in your life to go over there. 5-week trip, typically. That's not bad if you can change your whole life in 5 weeks. And but they ran into a lot of issues too there, and they brought kind of the animosity of England and France over with them. Unfortunately, that caused a little bit of problem. But again, there's just so much evidence, and we don't. We might come up with a theory, but it's after a lot of research and proof that we're showing in books and all that. It's not like, I feel that the Templars dug a hole in the swamp and it goes to the money pit and there's the great Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant in there. We're like, what would they really take? They'd have to take money. They'd have to, to finance. When they were kicked out, as a matter of fact, the order to leave said they could take all their silver and gold with them. The French let them take all their silver and gold with them.
And what else did they have to do? Knock down any
Fort. Yep.
And that's what we were saying is, and I guess where I'm going with that statement is that through our research, check me on if I'm wrong on this, but what we've been coming up with alternative, reasonable alternatives to what they're finding there. For instance, you talked about the trade, but I've been doing a deep dive into the indigenous Native American life there and culture. Fishing was huge.
Yes.
Fishing was huge. Codfish and eels and all kinds of crustaceans and lobsters and things like this. And they were salting it. They were smoking it. The Mi'kmaq were making barrels in Nova Scotia. And what are they finding? Parts of barrels and things like that. I can't say they're from there. I don't know that. But the point is that we see a direction where a lot of the things that they're finding or what could have been there very well could have been connected to this trade and mercantilism.
Well, actually, to speak to the fishing too, the first boat that Alexander got there successfully was in 1623, and when they left again, his people left on other English boats that were stationed up in Newfoundland. His ship was loaded with fish, and it went in a different direction to sell the fish. How do you load a complete ship with fish? I mean, they do it nowadays in the fisheries and everything, but those boats were meant to sail people over there. Now they're sailing fish back. So that's how big
smoking
the
it,
fish,
yeah.
big the
Salting it.
And there are hints on the island that some of the things on the island could have actually been for processing fish. Like some people have said that the so-called flood tunnels were actually salt collectors, and that the Stone Road maybe was an area to dry fish.
They call it Galette. I think it's called Galette. So, one of the things that I really enjoy so much is hearing from people on YouTube or on our Facebook page. And what do they say? Thanks for the history. And by the way, I'm related to the Malta folks. Or I'm related to the Alexanders. Or did you know my great uncle was a Douglas or a Gordon? And these are all players in the story that we've been telling. Jim, when you say evidence, what do you mean by evidence? Because people say, well, I see a carving over in this country or saw that. I mean, when you say evidence, what are you talking about?
Well, mostly the written word, I'd have to say. I mean, the written word and then looking at motives and what the events of the time period were. And also the families, because as we've proven, a lot of this history has traveled through family members. All the way down to today. But I wouldn't pick something out of the ground unless it had something written on it and say this proves blah, blah, blah. But I would pick a letter that somebody wrote to somebody else in a return. For instance, our friend Isaac de Razilli, who was the Knight of Malta up there, wrote a letter wanting Halifax Bay to be a Malta naval base. Yep. And who did he write it to? The Grand Master of the Knights of Malta on the island of Malta, and that man wrote him a letter back.
And we have copies of that.
So that's what I call a primary document. And we have the primary documents of when the Templars were formed, when the Templars, these are from the Vatican, when they were dissolved.
They're called bulls, right?
Yeah, papal bulls. When their when their possessions were transferred to the Knights of Malta, because they had to go somewhere. They owned so much. They owned like 9,000 properties when they were dissolved, and that all had to go somewhere. And it didn't just go there because one piece of paper. It took years to sort it out, and should we give this and should we give that? And I was reading the other day that even into the 1400s, they were still arguing about should the Knights of Malta, which are also called the Hospitallers, should they have received this, or should we give them this, or whatever. They were still trying to sort it out that late. So these were real organizations, real people. The people transferred from one organization to the other. They transferred properties. They had, the Knights of Malta and the Knights of Baronet had an absolute vested interest in Nova Scotia, and also a history, that's a written history. So my evidence, our evidence, generally revolves around something that's written. And not written nowadays, written contemporaneously. Like we have where Rosili's lieutenant wrote that they went into a bay east of Le Havre, which was a large bay full of islands that went deep into the land. There's only one bay that fits that description on the whole Atlantic coast. And they talked about islands in that trip. They talked about islands. They have that cute little story that we tell. And they talked about how deep Gold River was. And they wouldn't know unless they tried to go up Gold River. So it doesn't take a genius to look at that and say, well, this is what happened. We're still, when we try to assign the theory that might go with that, it's based on what was their motive then? And obviously the motive, a lot of it was driven by money. There isn't any question about it.
Do you think that we are moving away from theory to story, which is true story?
Oh yeah, it's true
I think it's getting less and less theory, because theory is you're kind of like saying, I believe this to be true, where now we're saying, this is what happened.
Yeah, well, like when I've seen other people go to the swamp and say, oh yeah, this is where they dug a hole and blah, 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 blah. I go to the swamp and say, okay, what can the swamp teach me?
Yeah.
Look at the layout of the swamp. Now, what would a human have to do to interact with this? Or if this road wasn't here, the swamp would be a bay. You know, things like that, you know, just logical look at it. And I think, you know, there's some people that like the wild theory and there's people that like the history, and we're appealing to those people that want the real history. And I'm not saying nobody else has any real history, so don't get me wrong, but
We stay in our
we're
lane.
stay in our lane. And when you mentioned getting comments on our YouTube, we get an occasional jerk, you know, that writes something that you just be as kind as you can to answer. But we do get those where, yeah, I really liked your show, but did you know, like you were saying,
Yeah.
did you know well, we found out about William Douglas, who was a Scotsman who's been in our story. Other William Douglases have been in our story right along, who ended up captaining the best ship that the Knights of Malta had in 2 of their battles. It was the first ironclad ship in history that they know of, and they're a Scotsman. And then you found the passport that Rosili wrote for the
minor
Ramsey
matter.
guy. Yeah, and you know, so none of that has ever been talked about. Nobody's ever combined all this, to my knowledge. And I think if it existed, you and I would know, because we've both went our separate ways.
And meet in the middle.
Trying to find anything. Oh, I found this book. Oh, I found this book. Read page 30 of this book. Or making a screenshot of it and send it to you. Read this paragraph. You're not going to believe it. So it's all built on, I would say 80% is built on the written word. And then the rest is probably logical assessment of their motives, of what was happening in the world at the time, of the knowledge of the families, how they, you know, how that would affect it. And I don't know, we don't propose that we have the absolute answer to what happened on Oak Island, although we have some theories.
That would be theory. Yeah.
But we are trying to be an open platform for people who have, for instance, we have a wonderful guest, if you want to talk about it in a minute, but we had Carmen Legg on, and he, very practical guy.
Yeah,
very practical.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and that's our goal, is to just take a pragmatic look at the evidence, particularly the written word, and then at least propose what might have happened.
Right. And when you say written word, I don't know how many times I've gotten a text message from you, and I'm looking at a document from 1650 or 1610 or 1500 or 1700, and it's the actual seal of the king at the time, Mary Queen of Scott, William Alexander, the minutes from the Grand Lodge in Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, I'm sorry, St. Mary's? Is that was the name of the lodge?
Yeah, St. Mary's.
Where we've got the signatures of the first 3 Freemasons, because they were not operative stonemasons, they made them Freemasons. They were like, you know, social members, I guess you'd say. So anyway, so I guess that's where we do a lot of research. So Jim, we just finished a whole year. We're looking down the road. So where do you see Oak Island Plus going?
Well, the plus part of it was going to be that we thought we might not have enough material and we'd be delving into other
UFOs.
Bigfoot or whatever. But it's almost like that plus now is you guys had no idea what can of worms you opened up. So I imagine we'll stick with Oak Island history for a while, especially because it accelerated so much in this last episode. And we're also getting incredible guests.
Yeah. Well, hang on. I know it's a teaser. Yeah, we're going to tell who our next guest is in a minute. So it says Rabbit Hole Productions. Where did we come up from that?
Well, because we started joking around that, like, I'd mention something to you, and then the next day you'd say, I spent 4 hours, I went down a rabbit hole, and I look what I found. And then I'd do the same thing. So we kept joking about rabbit holes. So we thought, well, let's just call it Rabbit Hole Productions. And then we realized we're talking about the money pit, which is a hole in the ground. So we picked the little
old story
catchphrase, the whole story. But we both have a lot of background in history. I'm a fellow with the Society of Antiquaries in Scotland, and you've got a PhD and a lot of other things in your life.
Yeah, I did a lot of it.
And so we're coming at it from a trained point of view, and it's connecting to make some good stuff. I mean, if you had even told me a month ago that we were going to uncover the Knights of Malta connection, I wouldn't even have believed it. No. And now I know we left out a lot, and we had to do
we're still working
2 1-hour shows, right. Part 1 and part 2. So anyway, we know we got a lot of good stuff coming, that's for sure.
Now, the next point, and I might surprise you when I ask you this question. I don't write books, you do the books, and that's a separate project. That has nothing to do with Oak Island Plus. How much money have we made off this project over the year?
Zip.
Okay?
In fact, we spent money.
So we're historians, we're researchers, we love what we do, and that's why we're even doing today's show. So it's a little thank you to our followers and viewers to say this is what we do all the time. We get together, we research a question, or we bounce off questions off each other, and we've been doing this successfully for a year now. And so that brings us to right now. So I'm going to let you announce this first time in the world, I think, at least on social platforms here. Who's our guest, and why are we bringing this guest on?
Well,
drum roll.
I've been up there at least 4 times, been on the island about 15 times, and I met virtually everyone except the 2 older gentlemen, Fred and Dan, never met them. But one of the people I met was Laird Niven, and I've always had a lot of respect for him because he's very slow in making his assessment of something. He's trying to do it in a professional way. He's a professional archaeologist, and he's not going to pick something out of the ground and say, "Oh, Templar." He's going to pick out of the ground and say, "Well, I noticed that along this line, maybe we should test this or whatever," and then possibly have an assessment for it. And so I thought, I wonder if he'd be on our show. And so I had his email, and I sent him an email, and I said, what we'd like you to do is talk about the artifacts that were found in our time area, because there's artifacts all over the range, but we're wanting to show that our basic theory is plausible, and one way to do that is the same thing that got me started. That's where a lot of the artifacts land. And it's pretty amazing when you look at it from that narrow point of view, as you'll see in the show when we do get this produced, you're going to see, wow, yeah, look at that, 1632, that 1626, that 1610. So he's the man this time, and he agreed to focus on those artifacts. And
all right, and we're just about out of time. So on Oak Island Plus, coming up in May, sometime on a YouTube station, a channel of your choice, our guest will be Laird Niven, archaeologist extraordinaire from the Curse of Oak Island.
Yes.
And for those that want to follow us, they can go to Oak Island Plus. There we all stretched out. We are on Facebook. You can check us there and see updates. And where are we on YouTube?
Oak Island Plus.
And we encourage you to subscribe, hit the little subscribe button. Jim, it's always fun to sit and chat with you, but we got to get going. Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's a little bit of a look back for the past year of Oak Island Plus, and we thank Access Chautauqua for running it as a feature show here in Mayville. And of course,
Wonderful.
Our friends over at Innovation Studio in Westfield, part of the Lakeshore Center for the Arts, Jackie Phillips and Randy Bird. Well, we're going to do this next week, so stay tuned and have a great weekend. Come over here and buy some crafts and enjoy all the good things that's coming up this weekend and weather and next week. All right, take care and be safe. Bye now.
Right.